Last year, the state legislature passed the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. It goes into effect next month, and that's when you'll start seeing money coming out of your paycheck to fund the program.
Joining us this morning is the CEO of the state's new paid leave authority, Andrea Barton Reeves. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. How much will come out of paychecks, and what will it go for?
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. So what will come out of paychecks is 1/2 of 1% of wages, and that money will fund the Paid Leave Authority Trust Fund, and then that money will then be available to pay for benefits starting in 2022. We do need a year in order to fund the Paid Leave Authority's Trust Fund so that those that apply for benefits will be able to have that income replacement available when they come to the authority in the following year.
Okay, Kevin and I just tried to do a little math on the set, and we said that if somebody was making $60,000, then it would be $300 a year would come out of the paycheck. Did we get that about right? Okay.
That's correct.
Not
yes,
bad.
It's always easier with the round numbers. Yes.
Yeah, for two history majors.
That's right. And the English major, too.
Yeah. Who's eligible for the program?
So eligibility is really determined on a few criteria. If you work in the state of Connecticut, that's the first eligibility criteria. If you have a qualifying reason for leave, and there are several of those, I'm happy to walk through what those are. And then if you have earned for paid leave benefits, $2,325 in the highest quarter of the last 4 of the 5 quarters in which you've worked, immediately preceding the time that you applied for benefits. And you had to have worked for at least 12 weeks before you applied for benefits. So it's a pretty broad swath of people who would be available and eligible to apply for leave.
So employers collect the money from paychecks and then will send it to your agency. How many of the state's 108,000 businesses have signed up to begin deducting from the employees' paychecks and then forwarding it to your agency?
Yes. So we're so pleased and very grateful to those employers who have registered. And we have about 5,000 employers who have registered so far. And so we have a ways to go to that number that you mentioned, but registration just opened right before Thanksgiving. So we know that people are just getting into the swing of things, but we appreciate their cooperation.
But it should be done in January. Is that employers should do that in January?
I'm so sorry we're really encouraging all employers to be registered by the end of the year because the contributions have to be withheld starting January 1.
Does this apply to part-time workers as well?
It does. So the statute's definition of employee is very broad. It really is any person that works for an employer in the state. So it does cover part-time employees. And in a way, this is a very good thing because if you are a current part-time employee, let's say from multiple employers, you often don't work long enough or enough hours at any one employer to qualify for family or medical leave under any other circumstance. This way, you would be able to at least qualify for paid leave when you would not have under our current laws.
I know that our state's benefits are the most generous of any state in the union. Are there other states that have similar programs that ours is modeled after?
There are. So we were the 8th state to sign up for paid leave, including the District of Columbia. And each state has a slightly different model, but ours is really more akin to Washington State and Massachusetts that has a contribution model in year 1 and then a benefits model in year 2. Massachusetts is a little bit ahead of us. Their benefits model will actually start to be implemented in the year that's coming up in 2021.
When the legislature enacted this program in 2019, this was a very different world. So
yes.
with now at least 100,000 more people unemployed than were last year, what's that done to the financial calculations of the program?
Well, yes, thank you very much for that question. We've actually had an actuarial analysis provided to us. So we had an updated one that was just published in October that asked that very question. What if in the worst case scenario, meaning our current fiscal situation remains as it is, what impact would that have? And although our reserves for the fund would be well below what we would want ideally for a reserve, the fund would not become insolvent. And the other issue that I think is important to raise is that the statute does provide the authority with the ability to adjust the amount of benefits that are paid if there is an issue of solvency. We certainly don't want to exercise that under any circumstance, but we do want people to know that there are at least two mechanisms that are in place and information available that tells us that the fund will remain solvent.
How does an employer prevent abuse of this benefit?
Yeah. So we get this question quite often because obviously it's very new to a lot of employers and fraud is always a concern. So there are a couple of ways in which an employer can do that. First of all, your employee is not just going to walk in and announce that they're going on leave and walk out the door. They do have to have appropriate documentation that's given to them by a healthcare provider, and that's clearly defined in the statute. And that healthcare provider needs to certify that that information is accurate, and then the person can apply for that leave.
How many new state employee positions will the program require?
So right now, there are only 8 of us that work at the Paid Leave Authority. We will probably grow to somewhere in the neighborhood in the next year or so to maybe 15 or 20 people. It might grow larger than that, but right now, that's our current plan. There are states who are administering plans of our size that have many, many multiples of people who are working on that. But we're new and we're standing up and we're still determining what the needs are. What we want to make sure is that we have the appropriate resources so that when people apply for leave, they're not frustrated and they get the kind of quality service that we believe that people in the state deserve. So I may come back to you with a new analysis, but right now that's about where we are.
And your job is guaranteed to be there when you return, correct?
Yes. So what happens is, I think you're asking me about job protection under the statute. Yeah, so what happens is that when the statute changes in 2022, if you've worked for your employer for 3 months, then you are guaranteed job protection, meaning that you will get your job back, or if your job no longer exists, you'll get an equivalent position when you return. That would be the law.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Reeves. We appreciate your time talking to us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
When Face the State returns, we will be talking about a Connecticut prosecutor who has been appointed special counsel.
We'll talk about U.S. Attorney John Durham's controversial new job.